Wood. It's so nice to see some very familiar faces and some new faces that are making a comeback. And hello, friends that are out in Zoom land. I am Dina, and I have two simple announcements. It's so nice to see some very familiar faces.
like to do, oh, you don't have it, do you? Shakyamuni Sadhana. So I thought when I came in, everybody be deep, deep, deep in meditation. So I guess except we become as little children, we'll not enter right in. Can you make it any louder? Tanya Deepa told me play nice today. Thank you. Oh, blessed one, Shakyamuni, precious treasury of compassion, bestow of supreme inner peace. You who loved all beings without exception, are the source and happiness of goodness, and you guide us to a liberating path. Us to a liberating path. Your body is a wish-fulfilling jewel, and your speech is supreme purifying nectar. And your mind is refuge for all living beings. With folded hands, I turn to you, supreme, unchanging friend, and I request from the depths of my heart, please give me the light of your wisdom to dispel the darkness of my mind and to heal my mental continuum. Please nourish me with your goodness, that I in turn may nourish all beings with an unceasing banquet of delight. Through your compassionate intention, your blessings and virtuous deeds, and my kind wish to rely upon you. May all suffering quickly cease, and all happiness and joy be fulfilled. So I tell you, if you sing something like that heart every day, there is no way that you could not advance. It would just not be possible. Because however we lean or incline, that which we continually do, our mind goes in that direction. Today I was tossed about which Dharma talk I should give, because I get 3 or 4, and then I have to kind of pick one, or I kind of merge them into one talk. But these were like shooting off in all different directions, and I had to pick one. I think we'll see as it rolls out. But I thought I would talk a little bit today about protection, because we all need protection. And something that we may not think about, that I want us to think about when we leave here today and all this week, is what happens after this. And so I'm going to give the discourse on hungry shades outside the walls. Some of you know that we put hardwood on the market, and we're selling it, and we're going to get a smaller place. We're putting the college online, and this will just be a place where people come do intense practice for a period of time and go back. We think that's the highest and the best use of our lives at this point. And as we were preparing to do that, and we're going through all the pros and the cons and the wheres, and and our reasoning and our and everything, I forgot about the ghosts that live here. And if anybody's been here any length of time, they're here. They make themselves known to you. So we have like the perfume lady, and mostly she lives in unit. Or I shouldn't call out the unit in case you stay overnight. You get that room. She lives in one of the units, and they're the 2 children who wear, the little boy who wears the double-breasted button-down suit, and they play marble. I can just tell you, Purple Lady lives in room 1. The kids live in room 10. And they play marbles. So if you get that room and you hear the marbles rolling on the floor at night, every time you cut on the light, it stops. It's that's where they live. The captain lives up front on that end of the building. His wife lives on the 3rd floor on this side of the building. Then there's one that lives and just keeps moving back and forth the courtyard up and down these steps through there. And then, we got lots of them. We have lots of them. When we first moved here, they weren't happy because we had invaded their territory. But we'd already bought the place, right? And we didn't know that it was on the Hendersonville haunted house list until we bought it, and the kids came for Halloween. This was the place they would come for Halloween and spend the night. So first we had to stop the kids from coming every Halloween, and as we were renovating, then it was not fun to them anymore anyway. But over time, we came to know how to work with them. And when we were renovating, Pops was here then during the renovation. And we lost crews all the time, because the ghosts would come out and you see these men start yelling and running out the house. Oh, there goes another crew. And so I began to talk with them to share why we were here and what we were doing and how we were going to restore the property, because it was like all dilapidated. Kudzu had grown over everything from the front to the back. Everything was all rotted out. It's still a fix or repair daily, but we restored, tried to bring it back. And then we invited them to come and listen to the Dharma. There's somebody walking outside. It went that way. And we invited them to come and listen to the Dharma. Okay. And they started coming. Now, the thing about that is, they have different kinds of bodies, different forms of bodies. So it's not just human ghosts. There are other beings, on the land. We have all kinds. You just go out there with your camera. We have all kinds of orbs, all kinds of light beings. We have tree devas. We have everything. And I wasn't too much interested in any of that or even knowing anything about that, because I'm like, I think humans should be with humans, and don't just get one cat, get two, so the cats can be with cats. And I just feel like every species should master being with your own first. Most of us buy pets because we don't want to deal with each other. And so I just kind of feel that way, and I wasn't too interested in knowing that much about it and being connected with them. But through karma, through karmic affinity, you find yourself in situations, and you have to learn what that means. That's how we grow. We can't always decide what we want to learn about. And it's because we have these kinds of preferences, about what we want to learn about and who we want to learn it from. We miss what we need to learn. And we are like a gerbil on a treadmill. We just keep going over our stuff that's in our preference data bank. And usually it takes, it's hard to be thrown out of that. We don't go willingly, we go grudgingly, unless we're catapulted out of a situation into some place that's uncomfortable for us. And we're just trying to learn how to survive in that place. And in the process, however, we learn something else. The universe is so wonderful that it brings to us what we need. Sometimes we're kicking and screaming. Sometimes it's through final abandonment and surrender. Rarely is it through inquisitiveness and a delight in unraveling the mystery, in learning something and knowing something and experiencing something that we don't know what. So we lose that capacity when we lose our childlikeness to be as little children. Don't be little children. Like, we're too busy being little children. We have our little hissy fits, our temper tantrums, our little mine, I want it, my mommy's the only one, or my religion's the only one, or whatever. We have all of that. They said, be as little children. What are the qualities? The first is their great inquisitiveness. That's why they can learn so much so fast. Because they're like an insatiable sponge, open and willing. Like they know they don't know. We think we know. And because we think we know, we can't know. We're like, I don't want the long version. Give me the short version. Go to the back of the book. Okay, I need some meditation. Check, got that. Supposed to have some insight. INSIGHT. Check, got that. No, but we don't. And so we roll around at the beginning over and over and over again. And then we just like change it up, you know. We tell it in different ways so like it sounds different. Like it sounds new, but same old stuff. No, just regurgitating. Just regurgitating. Nothing new. Because to admit that there's something else, something new to know, is to admit that we don't know as much as we think we know. To admit that there is something else to cultivate and develop and practice doesn't mean like, all those certificates they gave us are not worth anything. And that's our whole basis for identification. The certificates that we have, the people who think we know, or the people who we think we know. But if you ask them, they probably say, hell no. And so we play into each other's stuff until we die. And we die just as bankrupt as when we came into this world. Wasted life. And the Buddha says that, and not just the Buddha, but all the Buddhas. They have another name for Buddha in other spiritual traditions. But if we just took it as those who are awake is more than just I see, I know. Awake is being liberated, and there is a freedom, a true freedom. Freedom from everything. Are you free today? I'm not free. I know I'm not free. I don't know if you know you're not free, but I know I'm not free. There is still something tethering me, binding me to Panavati. Even Diane, sometimes that vampire gets up. Just depends on how I take what's happening in the course of the day and what I think I know. But when I go back to the don't know mind, the don't know mindset, then I open the doorway to know something in this moment. And I tell you, I'm in that place right now. It's difficult to be here today for me. Since my Buddha master dropped off his body, I heard what he said before, but I saw the man. But when he dropped off his body, now there is something else. And the way that he instructs now is not with like words that I filter through my impression of the man. There is no stinky skin bag barrier, is what I'm saying. So now I'm getting like a stream. It's like more like a symphony, It's not just multiple notes, it's multiple instruments. Just the information, the way the information is flowing. And it moves in such a way that it leaves me with not much to say. It is a time of growth and an opportunity of realization. And I don't know how to express it to you. And it's not anything new. but it's really penetrating, really coming to the end of words. So we didn't give any consideration to the ghosts that were here. And that was the first thing he mentioned to me. He said, what will you do about the other? He said, he said, he said it like this. He said, what will you do about those who have come to you, not in the body? And I was like, who? Like, who that? Like, I didn't know who he was talking about. And then he went through it the way I would go through it, like, the perfume lady, the marble kids. He gave it to me in a way that I understand. I thought, oh, those. Well, I mean, it was their place. I moved in. I'm moving out, and they could say. He said, then what will they do? And so it lets me know that there's some things that I need to do before I can leave them. That doesn't mean I'm not going. It just means there's some things I have to do before I can leave them. So it says, outside the walls they stand, and at crossroads, at doorposts, they stand. Oh, this is from the Taro Kuda Kanda Sutta. You can Google it. I'm sorry, Kay. I can give this. Just check for me in case Kay calls. The cat scratched Kay, and now her arm was swollen and immobile. It's a mess. She's on codeine, Deep was on morphine. It's like, what the hell? Do I get stuff too? Life. Yeah. At the doorpost they stand, returning to their old haunts. But when a meal with plentiful food and drink is served, no one remembers them, such as the karma of living beings. Now we're living beings too, right? So they're talking about what happens to some of us when we die. Thus, those who feel sympathy for their dead relatives give timely donations of proper food and drink, exquisite, clean thinking. May this be for our relatives. May our relatives be happy. And those who have gathered there, the assembled shades of the relatives, with appreciation give their blessing for the plentiful food and drink. May our relatives live long, because of whom we have gained this gift. What gift? The gift of honor. We have been honored. And the donors, those who give honor, are not without their reward. For there in the hungry ghost realm, there's no farming, no herding of cattle. There's no commerce, no trading with money. They live on what is given here. Hungry shades whose time here is done. As water raining on a hill flows down to the valley, even so does what is given here benefit the dead. As rivers full of water fill the ocean full, even so does what is given here benefit the dead. He gave to me. She acted on my behalf. They were my relatives, companions, friends. Offerings should be given for the dead when one reflects thus on things done in the past. No weeping, no sorrowing, no lamentation benefits the dead. Those who persist in that way, and those who persist in that way. But when this offering is given, well placed in the Sangha, it works for their long-term benefit and they profit immediately. In this way, the proper duty to relatives has been shown. Great honor has been done to the dead, and we have been given strength. The merit you've acquired is not small. So I had forgotten about this sutta. It's one of my favorites because of one of my teachers, Bernie Glassman, and he got Suryadas to make a chant for him, calling out to hungry ghosts everywhere in space and time. You who honor, you who wander, you who thirst, I offer you this Bodhi mind. And he says, come gather and enjoy this meal. Your sorrows, I make them mine. And this is part of our practice. You know, it's not all about mindfulness or how to be happier without things, because that's mostly what mindfulness is about. It's about me, me, me. We're talking about it like it's mindfulness about that out there and you, but it's really about me, me, me. And we find down the road then that this becomes empty because we start to know all the things to say. We know all the right things to say to one another because we all studied the same manuals. But never penetrate to the truth of it, so that there is a spontaneous and a spontaneous fountain of merit ever flowing. There's a song in Christianity that I loved. It said, there is a fountain. And speaking of Jesus' sacrifice, there is a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners washed beneath that flood lose all their guilty stain. And we didn't really understand deeply what that meant, what the example was, what we are called upon to have everlasting life. But as we study the Dhamma with a don't know mind, we can come to understand what that means. And we find that when we lose or give up this life of clamoring to be known, to make our mark, to do something, to be something. As we're reaching for that, thinking, this will satisfy me. This makes life meaningful. We find at the end of that, it does not make life more meaningful. And then we wonder, what then? What do we do? Where can we find some meaning for life? And they talk about how the years of man would extend and then contract. And that's what's happening right now. Our teenagers are having midlife crises. Many won't be here to have it in their 50s because the suicide rates have quadrupled. They come to see a futility and a meaninglessness in life because they're walking around like free but bound in a prison of our making. So Panyadeep must have known that the talk was going to go this way. Because I had something else in my, I mean, like he like lays there, like all day. It's like he just be getting signals. He be getting signals all day. I mean, he's getting too witty for me. It's really wonderful. It's marvelous to see. And I have to tell you that we owe a lot of this to Nancy. Because when they put you in hospice, their whole goal is just keep you comfortable. That's why I like 15 days constipated and they prescribe morphine. I'm like, well, morphine might not be so bad. I had some before. But my question is, how does that take care of the constipation? So what, he's just going to die from complications with constipation instead of Parkinson's? Y'all better do something. And she came over. I just worked for him 2 days. She said, it's like a tree trunk sometimes. Because what Parkinson's does is the brain and the muscles or whatever, all of that stuff, they don't communicate. So if he says move arm, arm doesn't move or something like that. So she said, he in his martial arts training and all of that, his internal arts, he's got a memory in there that if we can bypass his critical thinking mind, that part that's not functioning, and we can help him tap in, or however she says it, she's expert at that. Help him tap in, and he will know what to do and bypass the thinking mind. Now, this is important because it's like that with us. We have a fundamental nature that through the eons and eons of covering have created these hindrances and this perception of the world and of life and of joy. What brings us happiness and what we think brings us sadness, that to give this up means I'm less than. To apologize means I remember when the president went to visit the president of China, and they had the first meeting in I don't know how many decades, U.S. president and president of China. And he bowed in the traditional way, and it was all over the paper. Did you see what Obama did? He bowed his head to the president of China. That's all they could see. They couldn't see that he was honoring him according to his own. I mean, we've only been around a couple hundred years, a few hundred years, over here, and we think we like the sitting at the pinnacle, of just the, we just think we all that. It's just sort of like how teenagers do, before they get a taste of the real world. They just think they all that at home. And it takes getting out in the street, getting whooped around before they start to find out it ain't necessarily so. We could avoid that. And so we have been given so much. And if we can learn to use this in another way. But anyway, she said we could do that. And she worked on him just 2 days. Just 2 days. Did I tell you? He did. He did go. And their answer yesterday was they just called in a prescription for more morphine. So we're going to keep it around, though. I'm just kidding. Anybody who hears this, I just say, when life sends you lemons, what do you make? Yeah, you do. You make lemonade. Yeah. If you understand the nature of things, we don't have to be so perturbed. Nobody gets out alive, all right? Mm-hmm. So if one knows this intellectually, mind keeps leaning that way, then it starts to understand it by heart. And it becomes a real thing for you. The structure of appearances change for you. And the things that you thought you couldn't handle, you can easily handle because you understand the nature of samsara. So it doesn't mean that things are going to change. People are going to still lose their houses, lose their jobs. People are going to still meet up with unsavory characters. People are still going to have traumas in their life. People are still going to, just the karma playing out, cause and effect. But here's the thing. You have to know what you really hold fast to, what you really understand, what you really embrace as true. And that is, for me, that there's nothing that happens in my life that I did not have a part in creating the karma to happen. So nothing happens that I say, oh, why me? Why did this have to happen? I might say, why now? But never why me. Because I truly understand. Do you? If you do it, that's what takes away the sting of suffering, the sting of sorrow, the sting of death. That's what makes you able to stand. Sukha goes all over the place. They just dispatch her on a minute's notice. She keeps her little bag ready because she goes when we have disasters, like when the apartment building fell down in Texas. They dispatch her and she goes there and commands a group of people and does whatever she does. And and then she'll send me a text. Sorry, I won't be at Dharma Sunday. I gotta go. There's a flood in such and such a place, and she goes. Never getting overwhelmed by the circumstances. Never not able to fully be there, to fully show up. Never in a selfing mode, like it's about me. So she can be fully available for something. And in that kind of mind, change conditions, make something happen, moves into the creative way, but you got to be out of yourself to be able to do that. And if we are out of ourselves, we can really help support this world. But the Dharma has to not be for us. There is this self that we have to be willing to give up. Oh, we're so afraid. What does that mean? I've heard some stories. I heard some stories about somebody who left their wife or left their husband to fulfill their destiny. Then one is not necessarily related to the other. I tell you the truth, I left mine. It's okay. But only because I felt at the time that it was the only way I knew how to do me. So I tell the story, but I'm not telling anybody to leave their husband or leave their wife. Learn how to do you. I didn't know how. So I asked him, could I go? I felt like I'm getting old. I wanna serve living beings. And he said, he said that's okay. He said, because when I first met you, I was in my 20s then, like when I first met you, like you loved only me. You only had eyes for me. He said, now you love everybody. And I want to be special. So that was it. That was like the perfect thing. They could find somebody. I tell you now, it's been 28, 35. I'm old. It's been like maybe 35 years. He still hasn't found anybody. I'm like, when you had the best, like, what else is there? He bring all his girlfriends over. Like, what do you think about this one? I'm like, anybody, just take somebody, so that I don't have to take care of you when you're old. Just take anybody. Yeah. I'm laughing, but I'm serious. Because I'm busy. But if that time came, we had many wonderful years together. I learned many things from him. Sometimes we don't want to learn something from somebody, especially if we think there's nothing they can teach us. But when we get to the place that we can learn something from anybody, then we can learn something from somebody. We never get out of this beginner's mind. We have to keep going back there again and again. And life becomes a joy in this way. Like the least little thing that happens to you, you wonder, oh, how did this come about? Not why is this happening to me? How did this come about? And the first thing is that if it has come about, you're accepting the fact that it's what? That it's what? That it's present. It's like it's a real thing. It's not an illusion. I was just like, put it out of my mind. We're accepting the fact that whatever's happening is a real thing. It's here. And we mean acceptance in that kind of way. That we accept that there's no way that it could be, there's no way that it could be here except conditions were put into play that allowed this maturation, this situation to be here. So when we say accept, it doesn't mean like it's all hunky-dory and everything's okay. It just means that I recognize that the conditions for this to come forth matured, and they're here now. And I either learn from it so that I know in the future I just keep building that wall of goodness so that when the flood comes, the water doesn't splash on me. The wall holds it back until I can overcome and change completely the structure of appearances, and no longer then will that have any effect on me. That's part of what liberation is. That's why I know I'm not liberated, because things keep coming upon me. Mm-hmm. And that should give us some impetus to keep looking, to keep searching, if we believe this promise. If not, then go out and like really enjoy life your way. Do it your way, but don't be lukewarm is what I'm saying. And don't be fearful that the things you like will be taken from you. Because actually, the things that you like, if you knew it, are what's coming to you. And the first is the capacity to handle anything that comes your way. I mean, that's a reward enough, isn't it? But your mind has to be leaning in that direction. Because if not, this suitor is for you. This one called, I want to give you the name of it so you can actually look it up. Terracotta Conda. Just Google it. I know you don't have the book. Just Google it. And it's Hungry Shades Outside the Wall. Because that world, the hungry ghost world, is the world that you are destined for unless you give up. See the danger in, the craving for things in this life. That's the hungry ghost world. I don't know if you ever heard about that world before. And so I just didn't want to leave you about the 411 today. Because it's a real world. And if you don't think so, check in to, they used to call this Hotel Panawati. You know, somebody, the Hotel California, remember, some of y'all don't know that song, not old enough, but there was this song, Hotel California. Yeah, but you check in here and you'll come to know. Sometimes you have to know something to have enough energy to investigate what one must do to avoid a certain calamity, you know. But these are real beings who live in a real world. It's not our world, but then we live in a real world. It's not the Davis world. They live in a real world. It's not the Brahma's world. They live in a real world. It's not the Buddha land. And they all live in real worlds. It's not the Asuras worlds. They live in real worlds. It's not the animal worlds. They live in real worlds. That's not the hell realms. All of these are worlds. And we qualify after the dropping off of this body to take up residence in one of them. Where will you go? So the hungry ghosts live off of our energy. They feed off of our emotions. Our happiness, our sadness, our sorrows, our joy, our fears. That's their nutriment. Our nutriment is vegetables, and some of us eat animals. That's our nutriment. Their nutriment is the energy of our emotions. One of my teachers, my Theravada teacher, Bhante Panyaloka, said that sometime after his mother died, about a year later, as he was heading into his temple, he looked at the top of the stair, and there she was, sitting at the top of the stair. It scared him so bad, he went to a different temple. But she was there for something. He didn't know at that time. Well, he was scared. He was afraid. And he left. So maybe she didn't appear to him anymore. But he could have honored her by offering supplication. Now, he's well versed in the Dharma. He can read this sutta to you in Pali. You know, he knows the sutta. He knows what is said. says, but a direct experience is something different. And this whole walk is about that direct experience. So the time is up for us just talking, spouting empty theories and all of that. And I'd like to encourage you to go back to the beginning of the book. Because all of these things it talks about, or that we talk about understanding, that we don't really understand because realization cannot be hid. It's like a bright light that just shows up. You see it. But there's just a few things that we have to do. And we just need to stay with the beginning mind. All of the deep stuff, it's like when you read the sutta on Satipatthana Sutta. No, I think it's, yeah. It's not giving you step-by-step instructions on how to do it. It just gives you the first instruction. All the rest of that we fabricate as we're following the second, the third, all the way to the 16th instruction. Those aren't instructions. They like, if you master the first one, it's like filling up, it spills over, and you realize the second. And it fills up and spills over, and you realize the third step. And you realize the fourth, all the way to the 16th. But you got to master the first. That's it. We just have to master one. And just let our cup fill until it spills over. Someone asked me, about equanimity. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And between, about compassion. Yeah. Right, I got an email. Yeah, no, it wasn't hers. But I think it was equanimity versus indifference. And they consider themselves equanimous, But then the question came up. I'm like, if you got to ask that question, not going to be able to answer that question with words. The difference between equanimity and indifference. If they're in the same, if you need a distinction, a definition is not going to give you the distinction, is what I'm saying. So that's a question that's been asked for a person who on the wrong path. When I say the wrong path, I don't mean like it's wrong like wrong. When I say right, I don't mean right like right. I mean what leads to awakening and what doesn't. See, the leads to is what's so important. We're stuck on the awakening, not so much what leads to. We just want the awakening. Just give me that. Pow! That's what we want. But it's what leads to. And that's where we have to pay attention. In everything we do, in everything we say, in everything we think. Does this lead to? And you could call awakening, does this lead to a freedom for me? A freedom for them. A freedom for both of us. A freedom. And freedom is different than, fame. Fame is binding. Just ask anybody who's famous. They live in a hell realm right here. They may get to enjoy some of the benefits of fame. And sometimes you don't. Because sometimes fame comes with something. Sometimes it comes with money. sometimes it comes with a lot of people who pretend to be your friends and you don't know who your friends are. Actually, you don't have any. It's just like your money, or they like tagging along for the fame, the afterglow that they get by being close to you. Things like that. So everything that glitters is not gold. Oh, that's really nice. Not, I was saying it's not gold, like GOLD, but how about it's not gold, GOAL? You have to know what the goal is to walk this path successfully. And the goal is to get off the wheel of conditioned existence. So that tells us that karma is a law of nature. But there is a law that even supersedes that. That is the highest supreme law of nature, the law of karma, conditionality. But there is a law that supersedes that. And that's what we're striving to enter. All conditioned existence, everything that we see, has come out of we don't have a word for it, because if everything has come out of something, then how can a word or words describe it? It's not possible. Do we agree? So we say, so all of the Buddhas, not just Shakyamuni, all of the Buddhas say that what is available cannot be described in words, but it can be experienced. When you have a taste of something that gives you some sense of freedom, some sense of liberty, some sense of joy, some sense of happiness, you try to explain it to somebody, but you can't really, you just try to use words to explain it. But you can have the actual experience of it, and it is something, isn't it? That no words can actually convey. And if I did convey words about what it was like all you got are the words. You did not get the experience. This is an experiential way. If you're not getting the experience, you're just getting the words, you are not getting it. Now, I want you to get it. And these experiences are available, but we have to let go of the hindrance of knowledge to get it. We have to let go of our intellectual bent and inclination to know the secrets of the universe. We have to let go. And if we can just lower our own expectation of our capacity to understand things with words and open ourselves up to be accosted by, to be confronted by, I would call it the spirit of truth, but spirit might just throw you off a little bit because that's not like words we use in Buddhism. But you might just call it accosted by truth itself. You can make it a scientific thing if you want, a scientific law. But if we're willing to be affronted in that way, then we can have the direct knowing that takes us to the other shore. He says, for those who say there is no other shore, that has not been known by me. I say there is another shore, and I teach the other shore. For those who say there are no other worlds but this world, I say that has not been known by me, because there are other worlds. And he said, and I teach those other worlds. So I'd like to close today. The whole purpose of this talk is to allow us to surrender in ourselves, to surrender our approach to the Dharma as something to be learned. Because those are only fingers pointing, saying, go that way, go that way. When we come up against something that we don't know how to handle, what to do about it, they say, don't be afraid. No. This is just how you're looking at it. But there's a way of going through this in a completely different way that has no sorrow and that has no fear. And then as you encounter the day, you'll be able to see something because of the brightness of the Dharma showing. And instead of thinking that's a boogeyman in the corner, because the vision is so dim, the vision will become bright and you'll see that that was just the shadow of the teddy bear from the moonlight, something like that. And you lose your fear of this world. You lose your fear of what this world can do to you. You'll lose your fear of life, and you'll be able to walk in what you know is right all the time. And as you start walking in what is right, you lose your fear of people, what people can do to you. You lose your fear of loss of reputation if you don't go along with the crowd. You know, I'm sitting here thinking right now, I'm on a program. I've been thinking about it for 2 months at least. And I'm invited, accepted an invitation to speak. And the closer it gets to that time, I don't want to go. There's nothing that I want to say around that topic, you know. And it's a big thing. I just got an email the other day. It says, we're doing really good. We've got like 2,600 people, you know, who are attending, and, you know, you're speaking. And I'm like, I don't want to sit around with a couple of thousand people talking about the future of American Buddhism. I'm not interested in not interested in that. I'm not on this path to create an American Buddhism. We're trying to take this over now. It'll be the same as when we took over acupuncture. We started telling the masters who come from China where the points are. And now it hardly even works because we've taken it over in our conceit. So that's just where I am. Where are you? You should know. You don't have to be here where I am, but you should know where you are. What all of this means. What it's for. How you will use these precious teachings to free yourself. I can't free. The Buddha couldn't free. If he could, everybody'd be free. Actually, this world would no longer exist because it exists due to ignorance. So we think we're going to make create a panacea here. It's not possible. So if you have the illusion that we're going to all just get along here, no, When you're at the place you can get along with everybody, there's another world for you. You will not be here. This is for those of us who couldn't get along in the past. So we can do something different this time. I'm going to close with, in the Dharma cultivation, there's a practice that we do. In the second part, it deals with the 8 fundamental right views, which is the foundation of all cultivation and liberation. It goes into a special practice. And I was so impressed with Joe. Joe said, okay, I'm going to give a year to this. He gave 1 year to just this, just studying this one manual and trying to put it into practice in his life. And he talks about bodhicitta, the awakened mind, and what it takes. It's not facts that we're going to pour into our head and know. That's not how bodhicitta comes about. But bodhicitta comes when we, step by step, systematically, shift our relationship with others. So the first step is recognizing that self and others are equal. I mean, most of us are right there. Self and others are equal, or not there even. Most of us think more highly of ourselves than we ought to think. Or we think more lowly of ourselves. The same difference. High or low, you're still thinking about yourself. So it doesn't matter. But when we start to consider the other as equal to ourselves, that's the first step. And when there's a conflict of interest between myself and others, I will rid myself of hatred, antipathy, greed, arrogance, and a disparaging mentality. I will not emphasize benefiting myself. I shall treat us equally. That's a hard practice. That's a hard practice. When you have a view and somebody else has a view, that's why you call it your view, because you think, and you think your view, I think my view is right. And I'll do whatever I need to try to get that over to you. And the question is, when that's rising up in you, that my view is the right view, or my way is the best way. Not later when we like in meditation thinking about it, but right then when it's rising up. Can you put out that fire of self and say, well, he's got a view too. Let me listen to it. Let me think about his view as long as I've thought about mine. We'll listen and we think about yours for about 2 seconds. And then we're back on to our view and what was wrong with yours. But suppose you spend as much time trying to understand the other person's view, building a case for his view as opposed to ours. There may be something in that would shift something in ours to help us understand something in a different way, a fuller way. The second step would be exchange between self and others, bodhicitta. Now, this is where it gets really hard. Some of us are doing this Supreme and Unsurpassable Mahamudra of Liberation. And when we got to the part about suffering for the sake of others, about taking on their suffering for, the ripening of karma, unfortunate ripening of karma. I started getting phone calls, saying like, whoa, I didn't know I was getting into this. Oh, but you said you wanted it. This is what it is. Now you can back out. But this is what it is. I want to bear the suffering of all living beings. I give to others all of my happiness and good fortune so that they may leave suffering and obtain their happiness. Oh, man. That's sounding like, I don't know, almost sounding like a martyr. Like everybody admires a martyr and nobody wants to be one. That's just step number 2. And there's 7 steps. That's all I'm saying. It's real. Benefit others before self, bodhicitta. When other living beings and I are suffering, I want to extricate them from their suffering before I take care of mine. And when other living beings and I are both happy, I want them to be happier than even I am. Does anybody in here have that aspiration? Constantly telling themselves this? Is anybody's mind inclining towards that? Then our minds will never get there. Because whatever we think and ponder on becomes the inclination of our mind. See, this is elementary, right? This is the beginning steps, but on the eightfold path. But if we just start with the eightfold path, to write this, to write that, to write the other, without doing this work, we'll never actually be on the path. And then it talks about others. I don't even have to go effectively lead others to correct practice, renouncing myself to help others build good karma, bodhicitta. I don't even have to get into all of those because we haven't even gotten past the first 2. Get the first 2. They'll fill up and flow into number 3. And when you read that, it's like, oh, not a problem. Glad to know. And you can just execute. That's excellence. That's mastery in the Dhamma. Before Buddha Master departed, he asked us, how many of you want to be masters? He said, I don't mean people who just spout empty theories, but how many of you want to really be masters of the Dhamma? That it shows up in, that you have the accomplishment, that it shows up in a living way, not a talking way. I put my hand up. He may have died for me on January 28th. Because I put my hand up. And he said, I have one vow, and that is to bear all the negative karma of the living beings. He asked the question. I answered. I said, I do. Pasita said she did. Tati said he did. I forget who else was there. But I think there were 8 of us or something, 7 of us, something. Yeah. Well, not everybody said they did because they knew it was going to have to go through something. But what I'm finding, I'm telling you, is dying to self is without danger. There's no danger in the water. And just a little taste of freedom in the willingness, in the laying down of self has an immediate, immeasurable reward that is unspeakable. But I tell you, it is full of glory. So I would just like to encourage you today that it's the little foxes that spoil the vine. And we're not going for vain and empty theories, but for the only way that this can be known, and that's by direct experience. So what did you come to hear? That's what Moses asked the people. And they were flocking. And he said, what did you come to hear? because he wasn't going to give them what they were coming to hear, but he was going to give them something that led them to their freedom. He said, I'm going to show you how to just prepare the way. It's nothing you can do except simply prepare the way for it to come. So there's something that we can do, and I wanted to give you an opportunity this week to do that. That as you're having your meal, as you're enjoying something that you enjoy, the presence of a loved one, something that you're acquiring that you wanted, that you share the merit that you are, because this is yours. This is your merit. But that you share that with your loved ones. Now, who are your loved ones? The Buddhists say since beginningless time, we have all been in each other's mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers. So when you're sharing, your mind might just go to like your relatives, but he wasn't talking about that. He was talking about all beings in the six realms have been your relatives. And that anything that you receive, any good merit, you share it, you offer it to them. It's simply an honor. You can't really give it to them, right? When we dedicate the merit at the end of a talk or something like that, I dedicate all the merit, whatever merit there might be from this to blah, blah, blah. But you can't really give them your merit, your merit, your merit. But it's about cultivating a certain kind of mind. And it actually serves as a nutriment for those who are in a suffering realm. That is their only food, the remembrance and the kindness of living beings. And of course, the devas, in some traditions they call them angels or beings of light, whatever. Some they call them ETs. That they also remember us. And we have and can draw upon, their bestowal of thought upon us. So know that you're never alone. My cat probably thinks I'm a god. When he's hungry, food in his bowl. When he's sick, it's divine transportation. Probably thinks the vet's more of a god than me, though. Because he's not even afraid of the vet. He knows there's something about him that can make him well. Says that we are not without supporters as well. In realms more pure than this. So we should honor them because they're constantly in our midst. And if we do, we vibrate. Our mind vibrates at their level. We think thoughts at that level. And we have supports to dispel the darkness of our mind. So give honor, share your merit with beings in the lesser worlds. Upper worlds, they don't need it. But be open to receive their blessings. They help on their level. Same way I can feeding my pet, buying treats, giving him toys. You know, I have the capacity to do that, right? So beings on other levels, higher levels, have capacities, and they can do things to support you. Unless we just think we're at the top of the food chain, it would be a big mistake. I think I'm going to close there. Can we do the dedication of Mary? Do you know how to pull it up? Sorry, Santi's not here. But somebody can just offer, sister, why don't we do that? And you don't have to look for it. Mm-hmm. Somebody offer dedication of Mary for today's Dharma. Yeah.
And in our mind, silently, we offer any merit we choose. We ask that all living beings in all six realms, may they increase their fortune and wisdom and have always peace and auspiciousness.